I guess the most obvious question is,
Yes,
where did
Mark.
all this? Where did all that? Yeah, I love how you addressed me by name. That's great. Where did all this begin? What was the influence behind this, and what got this whole thing started for you? Because this is obviously it seems like a great project to kind of have as your first directorial project.
Yeah, I was attached as an actress, and I was just looking for a meaty role. That's it. I was looking for some moguls. You ski the bunny slope for over 30 times, and you look for odd terrain. You look for terrain that kind of shifts your spirit when you go over that jump, and this one did. This one had that capacity to kind of flip a switch. Breathed air into my spiritual lungs, which is necessary.
Do you think
for me personally?
Do you think Hollywood is scared to make these types of movies, like that they're worried that people aren't going to take it seriously, or maybe think it's too serious?
Dude, I was scared to make this
I
film.
would imagine.
I was scared to make this film. I'm sure Hollywood is terrified. But I it took an enormous amount of courage. And courage for me, and to direct it is one thing. It was one thing to attach myself as an actress and say, it's not. It's obvious about what this character. I mean, I've always talked about characters and being in defense of characters, and there was so much for me to defend about this character, and the themes that I'm always attracted to, of authenticity and passion and openness, and how do we that perfect mix of strength and vulnerability, exploring those things as an actress, but then as a director. The scare is, oh God, you don't want to come across as a Philistine,
Sure.
Either as a director or on the subject matter, and it's scary because it's such a subjective, it's such a personal thing, faith. Defining what it means to be holy, defining what God means to you, it's so subjective, and people are on guard. As soon as God's name, as soon as you say the word God, it's jarring, and I'm asking a lot of people. I'm asking a lot. I'm not making a film for believers. I'm not making a film for non-believers. I'm making a film for the whole spectrum of people, of humanity. Look at this very intimate portrait of a woman in her yearning to be the best mom, to be the best wife, to be the best friend, her best self, her highest self, and have a compassion for it, regardless of what you think or what your relationship with God, how you define God. But we all have some sort of definition. Even if you're an atheist, you still define God as, you have a definition. I think films about religion in these times of holy war are important. I think they can find a commonality. I think we can find common ground, higher ground in that respect. But I was terrified to do it, and so the conviction came. It didn't come as a roar. It came as a very quiet voice that said, "Try it." So on one hand, I directed because no one else would. I gave it to my mentors, and they were all busy or disinterested, and I really wanted to play this role. And I thought it was a really strong topic. Challenged me, and I think it always comes from I've said this before. I have to feel the fear, because I know that I'm challenging myself, and it takes a lot. This particular film took a lot of introspection and openness to tell.
Was there something that you learned, maybe like one particular thing, or from some of the past directors that you've worked with? Because obviously you've had a real varied, in terms of the directors you've already worked with on various films. Was there any certain things that you took away from them that maybe you tried to apply to this film?
Yeah, it's. But I think think what has really enriched my experiences with my directors is how close I become to them, and it's and that closeness and it's their leadership is my favorite directors have been the most passionate, the most the ones that truly are spread good cheer and joy, and that's Deborah, and that's Scorsese, that was Anthony Minghella. You just want to, they're the real Henry V's and Henrietta the Fifths. They just have the power of infection, of zeal. They have innate ability to spread the joy and get everyone on board, and I think with that kind of leadership and energy that you put out, you're going to get it back. If you shower your crew and your cast with tenderness and devotion, sense of humor, they want to give you the best. And you've got to, and the best directors also, I have a different process based on whatever, like my process, I always submit as well to my scene partner. I always feel like I'm going to get if my scene partner's most comfortable, then I'll be most comfortable. And oftentimes it's like it just depends. Like the way you approach a character depends on how relatable that character is to you, or how much you can just saw your reflection.
Saw my reflection
in the mirror. I began, and you were frowning, but you're smiling.
No, yeah, I
You were
am.
frowning.
See, it's the whole happy, sad, kind of like acting thing, right?
Yeah, you've got to more.
This is now my favorite interview of all time, by the way.
It depends on, it's like the best directors are flexible, and you adjust your personality based on the needs of your actor, and you do, you've got to do whatever it takes to cajole the best performances.
Well, you and I talked about at South by Southwest, because George Ratliff, who did Joshua with you, he had always said that working with you was very different from working with other actors, because he said that it was a very personal sort of thing. And so I would imagine that taking that sensibility and flipping it on its head and saying, okay, I'm going to now take this to the actors I'm working with and apply that same sort of technique, from a director perspective.
Well, I think we all have at least one story in us that we must tell. And usually, for George, that was really his. For whatever reason, for George, that was that that it was his story, and Joshua was his, the first. So it's like the people tell intensely personal stories, choose to tell. You don't get, films don't easily get made, and I think the ones that do really, there's something intensely personal about them that make it that bubble to the surface, because it's so rare. It blows my mind that I'm sitting here talking to you about this film, because it has everything. It just did not fit an equation for production or financing or distribution, and yet somehow I think it's by magic of the energies that united to make it and to tell the stories, and people from all different walks of faith, Christians and Hindus and Orthodox Jews, and it was a melting pot of believers and non-believers alike, invested in the story. And when you have that collaboration, that intense, passionate collaboration, then something magical happens. But you've got to be open.
There's an interesting story element in the movie where your friend, who is very, very passionate and very in tune with her faith, so much so that your character wishes that she could be like that.
Yeah.
And then the unthinkable happens to the friend, to where it in some ways, is that kind of almost maybe validating or maybe creating some doubt within Corinne's character? And I'm kind of curious of that whole irony in the movie at that point.
How she deals with her friend's death, as far as how she perceives, how that affects her faith, that pain, the agony, the disappointment, how could she be taken away when I was learning so much, when she was making it easy for me to cope, when this is someone who can delight in in both spiritual and carnal pleasures.
Right, she has the relationship with her husband that your character wishes that she had.
Yeah,
it's like a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and Annika is someone who has a her sense of self is uncompromised. It's not diluted. It just makes her passion for God makes her an even more passionate human being. And influences her in her sexuality and in her. She finds God in everything, in sex and in food. And is there food? Yeah, she brings her a cupcake.
Yes.
And
pink frosting.
Yeah. Oh, I had to scrub my feet so hard for that scene.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. That was kind of an unexpected moment.
Yeah. I love the weird places this film goes to.
Well, that also kind of begs the question of, was there ever a temptation to keep this from being an R-rated film? Because, there's only a few little things that I can think of that would push it to that level of being R.
It's amazing to me that it doesn't have an R-rated film just because of a penis drawing.
Yeah.
Because of an anatomical drawing.
Was that essentially what knocked it
No,
out?
I actually think there are a couple of Fs.
Yeah, there is a couple
There's
F-bombs.
a couple Fs. But there's an F-bomb dropped here and there.
In the bus in
But then
particular.
you look at Angelina Jolie's film that people are getting blown away, and it's PG-13. It's so weird. It's such a weird litmus test for rating.
Yeah.
But you gotta those are the powers that be, and
You can kill as many people as you want, just don't drop the F-bomb.
Yeah. Or give him genitals.
Exactly. Don't draw genitals.
It's like I have to be engaged. If I'm not engaged, then it gets cut. If I'm engaged, and even that was the hardest thing in the editing room, seeing how allowing the time. We had deadlines for Sundance, and there needs to be a disenchantment process. Like it's a relationship. You relate to your film like you relate to your spouse or partner. There's a certain there's a honeymoon phase, but you need time to really get in and see how things play out. It's wild. That was the hardest, the most emotional thing, to say goodbye to things that I found to be so engaging. But it's really, if I'm not riveted, then I know, if I'm riveted, I know other people will be touched in the same way. I can only imagine. And if I'm starting to fidget, or if after seeing it 1,000 times, then it's I can say goodbye. But no, I never. No, I didn't. I can honestly say I never considered what may or may not sell a film. If I did, I wouldn't have done it.